You're
All
good to
right.
go.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining this, our very first Tailgate Talk. It's a new series brought to you by Colorado LTAP in partnership with Front Range Community College's Highway Maintenance Management degree program. I'm Heather Carlson, director of the Colorado LTAP Center, with Cody Christofferson, our training coordinator. And in kind of your busy season, we just wanted to bring you some quick hit hot topics and things to keep in mind as we get through the season and before we ramp up our full day trainings again. So without any further ado, I'll hand it over to Sue, who is the director of the Highway Maintenance Management Program at Front Range. Sue?
All right. Hi, everyone. Let me just try and share my screen with you all here. It's going. Okay. So, hi, everybody, and welcome to the very first Colorado LTAP Tailgate Talk. We are starting with CDL Inspections, which is very important for a couple of reasons. First of all, it applies to all of you who are listening right now. All the laws, federal, state, local, they all require it, and they can all come in there and inspect your truck as well. If they find defects and pull you over, they can just take you right off the road, and nobody out there wants to be the one to make that call back to the garage, to your boss. Hey, I just got pulled over. I just got a big fine. Nobody wants to do that. So another thing is that if they, it's one of those things that if you do it every day, you can start to lose some of your good habits, right? You can start to slip back, skip some of the really mundane things that you think are never going to happen. You can just overlook stuff because you think, oh, maybe it's, it's a new tire, it's not going to be bad, or, that's never going to go wrong, or you'll miss something, we all need a reminder of what's important, and that means doing the pre-trip and the post-trip inspection completely. And last, and most importantly, the reason you conduct an inspection is, you know, for the safe operation of the vehicle. And it's not just for your safety. That thing you thought was never going to be a problem could be, or could cause a problem, or worse, for the drivers that you share the road with. That new tire could have a loose lug nut and just come flying off, break free, roll out of control, hit another car. Anything could happen. That pin that wasn't set properly could mean the difference between an attachment that remains in place and works properly, or one that breaks off, wreaking all kinds of havoc on the highway. So let's do a couple of quick basics on safety before we really get into the inspection. And I like to start with this every time because I've seen so many accidents happen because people just don't do the very basic things. And that means, first of all, 3 points of contact when you get in or out of your vehicle. Always. And check for debris on the steps and handles. Look for snow and ice that you might be stepping on. Look for stones or dirt that you might slip on or roll on, or grease or oil. And don't try to bring all your tools, your lunch, all of your equipment with you when you get in. Have somebody hand it to you, or put it in first and then pick it up later. So the pre-trip inspection, according to the Colorado Department of Motor Vehicle CDL guidelines, this is the really important 3-part exercise that should be conducted every time you operate a vehicle. And I know that we're looking at a couple of extremes here, right? Some of you are using vehicles that are, somewhere in between what you're seeing right here. So no matter if your truck looks like the one on the left or the one on the right, the pre-trip inspection is going to help you find the problems before they occur. During the trip, so you should watch your gauges. You should use all of your senses to determine if things are working properly. Every time you stop, you should at least take a look at the tires, the brakes, the lights, the reflectors. If you're towing anything, check the connections. Make sure that your towing is still connected and that your load is secure. Fueling, loading, and meal stops are great times to check your vehicle for some of those things during your trip. And then after you finish for the day, walk around and make sure that things are still in place, and that when you get in tomorrow, you're not going to have any problems. So the CDL manual requires, or recommends rather, so we just talked about the 3-part exercise. The manual recommends a 7-step inspection. And they recommend that you conduct it the same way every time so that you develop a routine, that you create a habit. Step 1, again, note the general condition of the truck and all of its attachments. Look for spots of oil on the ground. Look for drips, things that might be, hydraulic or any type of fluid that might be coming out of it. Look around and overhead, especially for hazards. I know plenty of garage doors that have been taken out for various reasons because things were sticking up or the doors weren't, properly taken up. And then set the brake and chock the wheel for step 2. And step 2 is to check the engine compartment. And I know this looks funny, but anything could be in there. And I have had anything from cats, bats, to swarms of wasps and bees that came out of there. So open it carefully. I can tell you firsthand the experience of having all those bees bite me was not fun. So especially if you keep your vehicle outside for any amount of time, which most of you do, resist the temptation to also stand on the fender to reach in and grab everything. Use a stool if you have to. But when you're in there, and after everything has vacated, check the oil, the coolant, the steering fluid, check the windshield washer, check all the battery connections, check the transmission. You might need to turn the truck on to do that. Check all your belts for tightness and wear, check the wiring and all the mounts and connections to make sure everything's secure. And then lower the hood and secure the cab for step 3. And again, this is an exaggeration, but for a lot of us, we're using equipment that, could be older. Our fleets are not the newest. And to avoid becoming something like this, make sure you do an inside the cab inspection as well. Getting in, again, using 3 points of contact and start the engine. Make sure the brake is set, put the gear shift in neutral, and listen for anything unusual with the clutch in. Look for your anti-lock braking system light to come on if you have that as well. If it doesn't come on, you may have a problem. Check all your gauges for the proper range. Make sure all of your gauges are in the proper spot. Check all your controls, all your brake controls, your horn controls, your lights, your signals, your flashers, all the controls. You check the actual lights and things later. And really important parts, make sure that you check the heaters and the air conditioners. Nobody wants to get stuck out there in a freezing snowstorm or terrible heat day with no air conditioning or heat. And then check all the mirrors and windshields and check for all your emergency equipment, your flares, your triangles, your chains, especially here in Colorado. Any time of the year could be a chain day. And make sure you have a jack. And then check the air brakes. And then turn off the engine and pocket the keys and set the brake for step 4. Step 4, check all the lights. You might need a helper to do that. It's a little bit easier if you've got somebody out there to check the lights. And here's a little bit of an exaggeration. Most of us don't have a vehicle with this type of light, but make sure you check them all. Turn on the headlights on low beams and the flashers, exit the cab using 3 points of contact. Look and see that everything's working, and then get back in to switch everything to high beams and check those. Check all the parking, clearance, and identification lights, and check all the reflectors for visibility. Sometimes during a storm, you might need to get out, knock some snow off of those to make sure that you can that they're working properly, that you can see them and that people can see you. Those inspectors that we talked about earlier, if you've got all this type of lights on your vehicle, those inspectors can ticket you for having vanity type lights out. So if you have them, you have to make sure that they're all working properly. Step 5, again, you're going to do a walk around. You're going to check for clean windows, intact glass, and mirrors. These are things you don't want to have after you get out on the road. They'll cause you problems. Make sure your door latches are all working. The suspension underneath is intact. Your axles look good. All your shock absorbers are looking good. Your cab locks are secured. Your fuel tanks and caps are secured. Make sure the visible parts of the exhaust system are intact and secured and that none of them are going to start falling off or, fail. Make sure if you've got a canvas or a tarp on there that is either secured in place or properly installed over a load. Check your tailgate and all the pins that secure your tailgate. Check all your splash guards. And again, make sure your towing system is in proper condition if you're towing anything or if you plan to tow anything. And I'm going to talk about tires a little bit separately because I've seen tires cause more problems than anything else. And I know this is not a CDL vehicle, but again, I'm doing exaggerations here. So tires and wheels, and these are all part of step 5 too. So this is a little extreme, but you really want to catch as much of this as possible before you hit the road. A significant number of accidents occur because of damaged, worn, or just, bad tires or poorly inspected tires. So on your CDL vehicle, Look for a proper tire pressure. Wear, you want at least 2/32 of an inch on all the grooves on the front and at least, I'm sorry, 4/32 of an inch on the front grooves and 2/32 of an inch on the rest of the tires. And you don't want to see any fabric showing through any of those. You don't want to see any cuts or separations. You don't want to be swerving around, or we don't want to be swerving around any of your, broken road um, tires laying out there on the road after they fly off of your truck. Check your dual wheels, no contact with the vehicles. Make sure the chains, if you're using your chains, that they're properly installed and that they aren't wrapped around, and that can cause all kinds of things to go wrong. And really make sure you check your valve stems too, as a general part of your inspection, and look for look for any damaged rims. Look for rusty or loose lug nuts. That indicates that there's a problem. They're not staying tight. Now you're going to be ready for step 6. Missing lugs, cracked or broken spacers, studs, etc. are always going to cause you a problem. Cracked brake drums, worse, worn or damaged shoes, oily or broken pads. These are all problems that you want to find all this before you actually hit the road. So step 6. And I only use this because most of you are going to be using your equipment shortly with some type of snow removal attachment to it. But I want to make sure you check all your signal lights. Double check them before a storm or a weather event. The worst time for them to fail is during any kind of an event. So your ability to see and be seen is critical to your ability to do your job. So make sure you check them in the front, the rear, check all the side reflectors and lights, all of your left and right turn signals, your flashers, your strobes, everything, anything that's going to make you seen and visible out there. Make sure during a storm that that you clear them of snow. I've seen the ice and snow collect on the headlights pretty much so that you don't notice it. It's going to be a kind of a gradual collection and you don't notice it right away, but the buildup will cause other cars not to be able to see you and definitely reduces your visibility. So now that you're sure that you can see and people can see you, let's make sure that you can stop, right? Step 7 is to check the brakes. So again, enter the cab. And how are you going to enter the cab? 3 points of contact. Start the engine and look and listen for things like air leaks, all your warning devices, hand and parking brakes. Make sure those are all operating properly. And then actually test the stopping action of the brakes. The last thing anyone wants to see is something like this in front of them or in back of them, just careening out of control. It's a pretty scary thought. So especially for some of you who are out there in some of the conditions that you're driving in and on some of those mountain passes that you need to keep open for us. So that is it for your quick CDL inspection. I want to thank you all for coming and attending Colorado LTAP's first tailgate talk. I hope you found the inspection reminders helpful and that you incorporated them or able to incorporate them into your daily routine. I always like to leave this type of safety talk by letting everyone know that we're not doing these trainings because something is tragic, may someday happen to someone. We do them because it already has, and many times over. And these are the lessons that we've learned from them. We don't want you to be a story that we tell in the next training class. So any questions from anyone? Okay, well, if we don't have any questions, just a couple of other points I want to make since I have a few minutes, I think. I want to make sure that while you're doing your inspections and when you're attaching all of your pieces that you watch for pinch points on your truck. I can't tell you how many times I have almost lost a finger or something because I was not aware where those pinch points were and the damage that they could do. And then very lastly, while you're out there, keep your head on a swivel, no matter what you're doing, whether you're in a truck or just on the side of the highway. Make sure that you have a serious situational awareness of what's happening around you. Your safety most often depends on driver attentiveness, and we all know how that goes most of the time. So make sure you're constantly aware of your surroundings and that you are just keeping your head on a swivel all the time and looking around, making sure that you know what's coming at you and the direction that you're headed in. So thank you all for joining us today.
Heather, you're muted.
Yep, I figured that out. We will be recording these sessions. Thanks so much, Sue, and posting them to our website for future reference if you have questions or just need another refresher. Other than that, we will see you in about 2 weeks, and thanks for joining. Thanks, Sue.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.